Hey planting people, and welcome to Nisha's Plants. My name is Kanisha, also known as Niche. I assume you're here to hear about all things plants. If so, hit the bell button and subscribe. So in today's Rare Plant Rehab, the king of the jungle, if that doesn't give it away, we will be looking at the Anthurium Veitchii. So I will basically be going through my basic steps to rehabbing the Anthurium Veitchii, and those steps are: number one, talking about the arrival process; number two, acclimatization; thirdly, we'll look at maintenance; and fourth and last, we'll look at repotting and positioning. Arrival process and acclimatization. So in regards to this plant, I bought it from the Netherlands and it was shipped to me on the Monday and it turned up to me in the UK on the Thursday. So that was 3 days shipping, which is a good time considering things would have been a lot slower at the start of kind of COVID, but now things I think are getting pretty much back to normal. In regards to acclimatization, now obviously the plant has traveled for a few days, gone through various temperatures. So I unboxed the plant, left it in my living room so it could get acclimatized to the temperature in my living room, which on average, like most of the house, is between about 50-55% humidity. I then, after about 3-4 days, moved it to the room of which my greenhouse is in, because that room ranges between say 55 and 65% humidity. I left it there for basically the end of the week. Following that, I then watered it. So when I watered it, I literally just wet the sphagnum moss. So you'll see it's currently sitting in sphagnum moss. I didn't soak it, I just dampened it just so it had that moisture that it would need because it was drying out. And obviously, though being in a higher humidity, you don't have to soak it as much, you still want there to be moisture within the substrate. I also placed it in a position which is bright indirect light. So for those that don't really know what bright indirect light means, it just means that it's getting the overspill of light that's coming into the room. So if you have a sun shining through a window, the rays of the sun aren't actually touching the leaf physically, they're just getting the overspill. So it's a bit like when you go to the beach and you're under umbrella. You do have shade, but you have indirect light because you can still see what you're doing if you're reading the book or if you're eating something. But when you step out from underneath that shade and the sun is right on you, that is direct light. So that's kind of the same in regards to plants. So when I had moved it in the room where my greenhouse is, I left it in bright indirect light for a few days, watered it, and then I moved it in front of my greenhouse. Now I did this so that it could somewhat get used to the grow lights that I have in my greenhouse because they are quite bright, but it also got the bright indirect light. So it wasn't directly under the grow lights because my anthuriums aren't, but it helps with the acclimatization process, going from being in a box to being in a medium light room to bright indirect light and then going under the grow light, which it would be there more consistently. So I basically did this to reduce the shock of the plant. Now I've taken these steps because, as I've said, it is a rehab plant, and you're probably wondering, why is it a rehab plant, Niche? Tell us. So I will unravel this for you before we go into maintenance, just so you have an understanding of why. So you can see it's in sphagnum moss. If we take it out of this moss, you've got basically the root stem, and that's, so see, that's the oldest leaf. You can see that it's kind of, the ends are dead. You've got the second there, and then the newest. Now if you look at the stem, you can see it's rehab because it's literally got 1 and 2 points in regards to roots there. So it's rehabbing because, as you can see, we don't have loads of roots. We've got a very, very small root system, of which we then need to nurture this plant so that it can produce more roots and sustain itself. Now obviously it's doing all right because it's pushed out a new leaf, but we just need to get the rest of this stem comfortable, active, and so that we can get growing with the rest of the plant basically. So this is why it's a rehab plant. So after acclimatization, because it's been in the room that's 55 to 65% humidity, it's been in bright indirect light, and then in front of the greenhouse, which will have grow lights, and then obviously the humidity will be a lot higher. Prior to putting it in the greenhouse, we go on to maintenance. In maintenance, I wash, or say clean, the plants, both the leaves, the stem, and the root system before potting it up and placing it. So let's go and do that. So I'll be cleaning the Veitchii leaf, stem and base with a mix of Dr. Bronner's castile soap, which has natural castile oil in it, as well as peppermint, essential oils, and this is a great natural cleanser, as well as hydrogen peroxide, which is food grade but is great of getting rid of any impurities. So if you have any pests in the soil, you can use this, but please note it gets rid of both good and bad organisms, but it just ensures that the plant is thoroughly clean before potting up and placing it with my other plants. So here I'm just showing you the stem now that it's clean. You can also see where that one root is and a little root underneath it. So now I'll just be tidying up the leaves. As you can see, they've got some dead ends, so we'll just be clipping those off. Now I'll be assessing the base of the plant, of which there's some areas where roots may have formed but they've now dried up, so I'll be cutting those off. I'll also be looking for areas that may be soft or somewhat rotted and then trimming those off as well. Now here you can see the start of the second root underneath this main, but the end of it has rotted, so I'm trimming the end off until we get to the point of where the root is healthy, and then we'll leave it to continue growing from there. As you can see, this area is really soft, so much that when you squeeze it there is water, so I will trim this off as we do not want that water or rock going further down into the stem. Same applies to the base of the stem. You can see that's really soft and there is some rot, so I will cut it away until we get to a nice clean area of the stem that no longer is infected. Here I'm just checking the stem to make sure there aren't any more soft areas or potential rot, and if there are, I cut them off. Now we move on to potting and repositioning. For this repot, we'll be using New Zealand sphagnum moss and clay balls. Links in description. So we've got our net pot because Anthurium roots like to have air move around, so like air circulation, and this allows for that. The sphagnum obviously holds moisture because it's damp, but also allows the air to move through the substrate. And we've got clay balls because, as you saw, I had to cut the base because it had a bit of rot in it, so that's nice and fresh. But once we put the sphagnum, we'll sit that on top so that the air can move around the base of the plant without it resulting in further rot. So that's what we're going to do. So this sphagnum moss is New Zealand sphagnum moss. It was recommended to me by a friend on Insta who has a load of anthuriums, and I've bought a few anthuriums from her actually. Her Instagram account is the Plant Attic. So we're going to add some clay balls on top just to give it a bit of a base for aeration, and because obviously the weight, it will push it down a little bit, which is fine. It just ensures that it doesn't get waterlogged, because obviously we're rehabbing this plant and we want to save it and give it the best chance possible. So that's great. I'm going to throw some in just so they sit around that end of it. Fine. And we'll just fill the rest with spag. Sphagnum moss is great because it's a great support, as in you can kind of tuck it in and it doesn't compact. Like, you can press it down to the point where it's firm, but it doesn't compact in the sense that it suffocates the root of the plant or the plant itself. See, look, holds it up wonderfully. And Anthurium loves spag because, again, moisture retention, allows air circulation around the roots. It's a support system. It's firm but not too firm in the sense that it suffocates the plant. So here we go. And there we go. That is our repotted Rare Plant Rehab King of the Jungle Anthurium Veitchii. So you can see that I've trimmed this leaf. I know you're probably thinking, Kanisha, there's pretty much nothing on that. Why did you even bother trim that? But I trimmed it because I want to give this chance every possible way to survive and to do better. And even it's a little bit of green that can help it photosynthesize, as well as this amount of green here and its actual leaf, then keep it on and let's do it. If it deteriorates any further, then I'll cut it off, but I don't think it will, and we should be good to go. So let's go and put it in the greenhouse. And that's my steps to rehabbing my King of the Jungle, aka Anthurium Veitchii. I hope you found it useful. If so, please do like and subscribe. It means a lot to me, and I hope to see you next week. Bye.